Hello and welcome to Coloholics' first ever one-on-one interviews. Dun dun dun. Tonight I have a special guest. I have a good friend of mine, Bixir. How are you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Bixir, who is the RPer behind the RPer? The face behind the mask, as it were.
That's a pretty difficult question, but I tend to be that kind of guy that's just into everything generally. I'm into a bit of fantasy, I'm into a bit of sci-fi, realistic. Chances are, if you want me to get in something with you or role play something with you, I'll probably be willing to do it, or at least I'll have the interest for it. So that's always that to consider, as opposed to those that try and stick within their own little niche.
Well, who is the man behind the RPer? Like, where are you from? Who are you?
Oh, sure. My real name is Tom, and I'm from Washington State, way up north in Bellingham, actually. So.
Does it rain a lot there?
Oh yeah, it rains plenty.
I see. All right.
But typical Washington weather. I'm used to it by now.
So I've been wondering this. I'm sure a few listeners have as well. When did you join Colo, and why is that?
I believe it was 2 years ago. I've been at Coloholics for 2 years now, as of last month. I was getting into general form role playing at the time, back in August, September 2011, and I had gotten an invitation from a random PM on the main forum I was at to come to Coloholics and check it out, and I thought, what the hell? It might be something worth looking into. It might be fun. And it just went on from there. And I really got to know Coloholics and its people and the role plays and just generally everything about it.
I see. How was the community at the time?
The community of Coloholics?
Yes.
It was pretty fun. I got to know a lot of people over the 2 years I've been here. A lot of people have come and gone. Some have stayed longer than others. But it's generally pretty welcoming for the most part.
Have you had any rough patches? Like, I know a lot of people bitch on the internet that we have nothing but rude people and trolls.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of spam bots set up out there that like to try and advertise or try and invite people to come to Coloholics, but they don't really represent who we are or the kind of people we are. I'm really not sure why they do this sort of thing. It may be because we've gotten that popular or big. It's trying to put us down or whatever, but honestly, I don't really care about any of that or whatever people say about us these days. We tend to have fun however we want to. We just have a generally good time. I mean, so long as you're not overly belligerent or just nonsensical with problems you may have, or if you just try and bring them up, we tend to be fairly understanding.
So we like to keep things in-house and kind of settle it where it is.
Yeah, we tend to keep things in-house and just, there's a general status quo we go along with. Oh yeah, we joke around a lot, and the C-Box is by far no standard to judge the site by. I mean, it's a typical chat system.
Yeah.
That's never really gonna, it almost never sends a positive message to people that judge a site just based on that little bit at the bottom.
That's kind of why it's at the bottom. It's like, that's where we throw our dirty secrets.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the toilet. So you don't want to judge a house by just looking at the bathroom.
Yeah, there's a few turds floating around in there. I know that. But it's generally pretty... Well, it's where we usually, like, get together. It's like, hey, Bixir, I need you to post on this. And you may say, all right, fuck off, turd. I'll be back. And then next thing I know, you've posted.
Yeah, exactly. It isn't really something to necessarily take seriously, but at times it is a pretty, a quickly accessible way of getting people's like, oh, hey, I need to talk to you for a minute, or could you post this for me, or something like that.
Yeah. All right. So far throughout your tenure here, what is your favorite RP and why?
That's changed a couple of times over the 2 years I've been here. But recently, the one I've really gotten into is a very recent one, actually, which would be called Progenitor, and it's generally it's a superhero kind of roleplay, but it's completely original characters. There's no Marvel or DC or anything like that we have in a couple of other themed comic book roleplays.
That's the one you're whooping my ass in.
And so I enjoy it just because it allows players to put their own take and own spin on things. They can put their own sort of quote-unquote superhero vigilante characters into this universe and help contribute and build it from the ground up, essentially.
Or burn it down, depending on your alignment.
Burn it down. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with it. That's the beauty of it, really. And just, I've always been a sucker for superhero sort of stuff, but when it comes to things like it doesn't have a Marvel or DC label. For whatever reason, that just appeals to me a lot more because it's about the players building and developing the roleplay universe and not some predetermined comic book setup. Like
how Superman's always going to be an asshole.
I would disagree with that, but that's something for a different time.
Indeed. All right. Well, moving on is what's your thoughts on Coloholic at the present?
In the present,
yes.
I think we're doing extraordinarily well. Aside from the donation issues we always have, that's always something that we can work on and people can contribute to. If people aren't sure that they can be form designers or graphic designers, we can always use donators. And the donators, be it any kind of Coloholics member, they're the people that keep the site running, and they're the people that we really need to thank. So keep that in mind. Shameless plug aside.
Indeed.
But Coloholics in the now, I think we're doing extremely well. We've got a lot of new role players, a lot of new role plays, and especially what I find interesting, we've got a new influx of traditional role plays as opposed to the free forms that so many people are used to. So it's interesting to see people see the other side of role playing into like how mod driven and regulated it is. As opposed to just people doing whatever.
I always liked seeing the rigidness of a traditional roleplay. It's kind of like looking back, if you will. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
It reminds me of all my family.
It won't necessarily be the same as things have been before even I came to Coloholics, but it's interesting to see. Oh, so this is what things might have been like, or this is how other types of role plays are run, as opposed to the status quo.
Oh, yes.
What we've had.
My other question in dealing with this thought at the present is, how do you feel our populace is doing? I mean, we have a shit ton of members registered, but I only see maybe 100, 150 any given time.
I've brought this up with a lot of different people. It really blows me away how, like, we can look at all the big main page role plays and maybe a couple of the minor role plays that we're in, and we're comfortable in those. We have our own individual niches, like I sort of mentioned before, and we only really know and interact with those people. And this is especially true with the C-Box. The C-Box people are just all involved in the chat and just always being down there and talking it up. But then we have thousands upon thousands of people we don't even really know exist. They just stick to their own little
corner of the room,
essentially, with a minor role plays, as well as in some main page role plays as well. And we'll never really see them interact with them because people base popularity and just membership in general by if you're active on the C-Box or if you're a big player on one of the main pages. Because otherwise, a lot of role players and a lot of Colo members don't really pay attention otherwise. And it really blows me away when I see, like, I would come across this profile of a person I've never met or heard of before on the site, and they have like 4,000 or 5,000 posts. Yeah. It really goes to show how big and widespread Coloholics is, and it's just a giant ocean with hundreds, maybe thousands of tiny islands that will probably I know I'm never even going to see or fully get to know because there's just so much.
It is a vast ocean out there of members. I mean,
yeah. It's really interesting to think about about that kind of thing, just realized how big Coloholic has become.
From the short time I was here, I remember seeing only a few thousand, and just bam, we got an influx. It was like the rise and fall of the tide.
Feels like we're always growing, but we're always losing members. We're always gaining members. It's an interesting
sort of like the death rate of the planet. Well, I mean, moving on to the next section of where do you think we're going with Coloholics? I mean, do you think we should do like Newgrounds and have our own corporate building?
Like doing a partnership with them or something?
Oh, not with Newgrounds. That's like saying I want to be friends with 4chan. You just don't do that.
I'm not sure what you mean then. Like corporatizing ourselves or something?
Not so much corporatizing. It's more or less we're going to have to get to a point where we need people to bring money in. I mean, our donation crises have been ramping up. The more we seem to grow and bursting at the seams, the more it seems our trickle of cash seems to be.
It is an issue that we've had to talk about and try and figure out in recent months. But looking into a lot of different options, I don't know any of the details because I'm not TFD or Evo, and so
is that a nudge at me?
Or knowledge of what their plans are. But I know there are a couple plans in motion, but anything really to try and consider how we might be able to keep Coloholics flowing while trying to not antagonize and force members to pay anything really, because mandatory fees aren't an option, and yet we have tens of thousands of members, and if say 600 or so of them donated $1 a month, we would literally have no need for concern for any monetary issues.
Yeah.
And so that's just something to keep in perspective. But of course, there's someone else will donate. But
there is that horrible mindset right there that you just mentioned.
There is that mindset there, but
I was a big cause of that right there for like the short time because I'd be donating so much.
I mean, you did what you could, and a lot of other people try and donate what they can. I know I'm trying to make sure ends meet, but also donating to Colo whenever I have some extra money. Or I don't need that weekly donut binge. I can just put it as a Colo money. So
yeah,
it's just think about things like that, as well as there isn't necessarily someone else that's going to donate. That someone else is you.
You have to really kind of stop and look to the left and right of you and see the man or woman next to you and be like, I'm putting $1 up. If you put $1 up, that takes a burden off the other guy. If we all just chip in a little bit at a time, it takes a burden off the next person. So say we got every member to donate at least $1. We'd probably be paid up for a year. And then no one would have to pay up for like a while.
Yeah. We have 20,000 plus members. If we had $20,000, we would probably be set for multiple years.
Oh, yes.
But that's just putting theoretical statistics.
That's just an optimized view.
But just something to think about.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here from Tom, a.k.a. Bixir, one of your fan favorites on the forum. Hopefully you see him continue to pounce on me on Progenitor. Check out our site of church burning and poor singing and drinking. And this is our hail and farewell. Good night, folks.
See you around.
And good night.